Hey everybody, so welcome to this Blender quick take tutorial. Today I'm going to be breaking down the NLA editor, so hopefully you find this really useful. So the NLA editor is non-linear animation, so basically it allows you to mix and match different animations in the same way that you would mix and match Photoshop layers. So actions are animated animations of an object. So any action is created by when you insert a keyframe on an object. So you can see here, if I rotate this, I immediately get keyframes, but then I also get this Byte002 action. And what I like to do when I'm working in the NLA editor is typically your outliner will show the layers of your scene. What I like to do is go down to Blender File and open Actions, and now I can actually see each individual action as it's created and rename them if I need to. So, and you will need to. So, all right. So, like, let's say I've created, this right arm rotation, right? And so, what if you want to reuse this in the future? Like, you want to blend this with another animation. What you do is, you probably know, you go over here and you push down the action. Now, one of the most confusing parts of the NLA editor is, all right, you've pushed down the action, that's stored it in this track, but the track itself is not the action. The action is over here in the Blender file. So, for example, if I rename this track, click on this and I go like right arm raise, all right, my action has not been renamed. I've just renamed the NLA track. So it's like, okay, well, let me go and rename the layer, right arm raise layer. The action still hasn't been renamed. And you can actually see, if you click on any NLA track and you open the end menu, which is, it's, if you don't see it, just click up here and it'll expand. You can see the action is actually listed here. So what you want to do to be sure that you're renaming the action is go down to the Blender file, right click on the action and go to rename, and we're going to right arm raise, and now you can see that's reflected here in the actual action. So the action itself is separate from the NLA track and it's separate from the NLA layer. I'm just going to call them layers and tracks because I can't keep saying that. So that's how you do that. And so you can rename layers and you can rename tracks and you can rename actions all separately. So that's really important to keep in mind. It threw me for a loop when I was first starting. So, okay, so what's the big deal about the NLA editor? Well, it's really, really cool because as you can see here, I have a couple different tracks. I also have a couple different actions that correspond to those tracks. And so, for example, I have a thumbs up layer where, my astronaut just gives a thumbs up, right? And I've got, one where he raises his arm, or she, raise their arm and also gives a thumbs up. So if I enable both of these at the same time, he'll actually raise his arm and give the thumbs up at the same time because they're blending. And so you can say over here in the active strip, if you click on it, you can see how do you blend them. You replace them, in which case the keyframes for these fingers, you can see there's already keyframes here. They will replace what is in this track. The other option, though, is I can say combine. So you're basically combining the animation keys between the different bones to join them together. What you can also do is you can stretch things out. So like, let's say that I want the thumbs up to last the whole time that it takes to get up there. You can scroll down your playback speed, so it's actually slower. And now my astronaut doesn't complete his thumbs up until his hand is fully raised. You can blend in and out, which I'll show in a second. You can move this around. So let's say I go all the way up to here. I'm going to move you to there. And then he does that. Or I can even set repeats. So I can repeat this twice, for example. It closes, and it snaps back to the original keyframe, and then it closes again. So this is really, really powerful. Some other stuff you can do is, actually, I should note this. When you turn off an animation layer, like I just did, whatever is visible in your viewport will stay there. So what you want to do is turn them on, go back to the beginning, and then turn them off, now you're actually seeing, from a base level pose. So I have two different tracks. I have a track here where it's arm rotate NLA. So all it does is just rotates the wrist. And then arm side raise, which does that, right? You can see this animation lasts a little longer, so let's actually reduce the playback speed, or increase it rather. There you go. So it happens the whole way up. What you can do is you can use blending in and out to kind of add two things together. So let's say, let's turn on the arm raise. And you can see they're kind of coming in together. So this one on its own, by the way, is just kind of raising up the arm in like a thumbs up type pose. So what you can do is if you turn on both of these, you can select, say, I want this one to blend in over time. So those keyframes are added in over time based on that. And so if I click blend in, you can see that the keyframes don't affect the arm 100% until all the way near the end. So in this way, you can kind of adjust how these things work. So layer track ordering does matter because it's like Photoshop. They layer on top of each other. You can change the way they blend using replace, combine, any of these things. So you can see it's kind of funky now because, I'm doing an arm raise, but I'm also raising it to the side, and I'm adding these two keyframes. I'm actually combining them. If I do add, sometimes you can get some really wonky stuff. I kind of love that, actually. Replace is just straight up replacing, right? So, like, I have animation data for these joints in this track, but I'm replacing them with data from this track. Or I can combine them, where I combine the two data tracks, and then I get kind of a multi-faceted movement. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say blend in here, and then I'm going to change the blend in so the arm raise doesn't start to happen until it's a little bit further out. So now his arm isn't going to start like kind of pulling inwards, because if I double click this to open and edit the track, I'm going to hide the other one. What this all it basically does is moves from the outside in and arm and thumbs up, right? This one, arm side raise, all it's doing is raising kind of upwards to the side. So if I combine them where, all right, I want him to raise his arm and bend it forward, I can adjust when they get added together by just changing these blending in and outs. You can see like, oh, it goes up and then, oh, it flies out, because now this is at a 0. The keyframes from this layer are at 0, and the keyframes from this layer are at 100. That's kind of how that works. It's like actually exactly how that works. So I hope this kind of helps explain. I think the biggest thing to take away is just how to rename these different items. So again, layers, tracks, and actual actions. And then also, you can do a whole ton of stuff. You can even animate this influence, so you can keyframe it. You don't have to just using in and out. You can change when, like how fast the strip is playing, what time it should be at, things like that. It's extremely powerful. And let's talk about kind of how to get all this out into another application. So what I'm going to do is export FBX. And so there's two ways you can do this. If you're importing into Unity or Unreal or anything like that, you can either choose to export the actions, so that would be all of these, or you can export the NLA strips. Finally, how do you bake all of this down into a single file? So let's say you have, a lot of different stuff. You have all these different animations. Unfortunately, you can't merge layers together. So the best you can do is export FBX. You want to bake the action, and then you want to export it all as a single thing without NLA or actions enabled. And so when you go export to FBX, I open another thing of Blender, and then I import FBX. See, it's kind of doing both at the same time. And then, now that I've done that, I can go to animation. This is now all a single track, and I can push that down. It's annoying. Unfortunately, that's just the way Blender works. So I hope that helps. And, you know, I'm going to give you guys a thumbs up because it's really kooky. And ta-da! Oh, God. Just kidding. Everything went awry. Here we go, right? Whatever. Have a good one, guys. See ya.